Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Heartland Mamas. I'm Marie Briel.
And I'm Heidi Henry, and we're still in two separate socially distant studios at the edge of the Great Red Divide, and that doesn't change. Today, you can find all of our previous episodes at heartlandmamas.com on all podcast platforms, YouTube, and proudly part of the Demcast USA network. Plus, you can catch our show, Heartland Mamas Unrolled, on your local independent radio station. And today, Murray, we're going to talk about how much
Tex-assier!
yeah, how much Tex-assier can Greg Abbott make Tex-assier or Texas?
You
Because I don't know
know,
what's going on down there, but I think they're planning to cut themselves away from the United States. Seriously, Murray, they seem to be setting up for a militarized state in their little republic. And I do wonder if they're really going to push forward this idea of secession again. It just seems like this stuff is so anti-human, right? Anti-rights, anti-independent thinking, and very wild, wild west. So let's go. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
yeah, Heidi, I have thought similarly to you. A lot of the legislation that is coming out of Texas, and in fact, quite a bit of legislation that's coming from consistently about 23 states in the United States, is following these patterns of dismissal of federal rules, adaptation of power driven rules. And it also feels a bit like, okay, like we talked about this on one of our past episodes, where, the federal GOP is feckless right now, right? They don't have
Yeah,
the donors, they don't have the drive. They're torn between conspiracies and conservatism, right? But the
right.
state parties have decided that it's their turn to shine. They're like, forget the federal government. We are going to make our own tightly controlled, keeping us in power fiefdoms. And I wonder if that doesn't have
Maureen,
part to do with it too.
you're talking about all red states. These are all heavy duty Trump states that went heavily for Trump in 2016 and in 2020. They are largely states that are controlled by officials elected that were handpicked by the Federalist Society with an agenda that is not Republican, but more of a libertarian bend. In fact, it's almost as if they're setting up little individual countries that, trust me, are not sustainable, because if you look at the legislation, a lot of these are taker states that
Well,
take
didn't we
more from
just
the
see what
federal
happened to
government than they put in.
Texas? Their
That,
privatized electrical grid. Let's be honest. You're
oh,
totally right. Now Texas isn't
yeah,
necessarily a taker state. They do charge, or they
they,
do
yeah,
charge income
they,
tax, and they do
right.
pay. But I think you're right. I think they are creating these post-apocalyptic sanctuaries for QAnon
Mad Max,
crazy
yeah.
red folks and driving out anybody who isn't. Maybe
Well,
that is the federal. Maybe the RNC went to these states and said, "Hey guys, look, we don't have our shit together. We're not gonna have our shit together at this level in a long time. But if you want us to get our shit together, then you need to get even redder in your areas
well,
and work that
recent
way."
polls in Texas have shown only 20% of the voters are in favor of some of this very I don't even know what to call it, but this very authoritarian legislation that's going through, and it's not just the anybody who wants to be Yosemite Sam can carry a gun without any ground check, no insurance, and no training. Um, but it's other things. They're banning we did a show a couple weeks ago on the 1619 project. They're banning all of that information. They're banning trans people in any sports, even though even the Olympic Committee has made room for that, right? they are banning the
Look
expansion
at
of
the abortion restrictions that have
well,
gone
the
into
abortion
place.
restriction, you know, and that goes,
And the voting
yeah,
rights restrictions. They have
yeah,
enacted probably the third strictest set of voting right restrictions, behind Georgia and
Florida,
Florida. You
yeah.
know?
Well, those are fiefdoms that are strongly Trump. Those are areas that are, you know, would secede for him if he says do it, right? You know, not the
Okay.
voters.
So can we go back to our little bit for our audience, the Satan in training super villain. What kind of cat do you think he strokes? What kind of cat?
You know,
What kind
as a
of
cat
cat do you think
lover,
he's
you know,
sitting in his evil lair in Texas? Because you know that son of a bitch has a lair where he can sneak out of, and probably some half of a hidden
in
mountain
his
somewhere.
wheelchair. So it's wheelchair accessible, you know,
Right.
it's ADA compliant, even though he doesn't believe in ADA compliance for the rest of the state, but his layer is ADA compliant.
Right.
Um,
So, I mean, what kind of cat do you think this dude is stroking? Now, guys, just real quick recap. This is the governor who has done ridiculously stupid and heinous things, including vetoing a law that would make victims of sex trafficking, children victims of sex trafficking, considered victims under the state statutes, and would allow them to get put into therapy, rehab, counseling, foster care, reunification. And he said, no, 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 we're going to keep treating them as criminals. So children as young as 7 are put through the criminal justice system, through the
yeah.
juvenile system. And his answer was, well, if we don't have punishments for the kids, then traffickers will just bring over more. And that's what I'd like to talk a little bit about, is the insanity of the logic of Greg Abbott. So he and his lieutenant governor, Dan Patrick, such a sweetie, they have been
Hmm.
pushing this back the blue legislation, right? And that includes bills that are sitting on his desk that he's going to sign, the Second Amendment bill. And that's the bill that Heidi mentioned to you. It is a bill stating that you do not need to follow federal guidelines, or they've removed state guidelines allowing you to carry a handgun openly. It used to be that they had to have a background check, that they had to go through training and have a license. And they have removed all of those criteria for being able to openly carry. Now, Heidi, you said something in our pre show, and I think you should hit on it and talk just a little bit about how we got to where we are with guns in Texas.
Well, way, way, way back. And you have to go back 4 governors till you get to Ann Richards, who served as governor of Texas, and she was their last Democratic governor until 1995. And she lost the election to George W. Bush, the infamous W, over a concealed carry bill. She was against concealed carry because she felt that it impinged law enforcement and prevented them from having like a clear, clean idea of what somebody was packing or not, right? So, and sometimes, you know, we talk about references to that. She was trying to prevent law enforcement from being in mortal danger in an unknown way. So she didn't want people to hide a gun, you know, in your pocket, um, and have law enforcement have to deal with that. They have to make snap decisions as is. It's a very dangerous job. So Ann Richards lost that race on concealed carry to George W. Bush. So what George W. Bush, who believes strongly in the Wild West Hollywood myth of the bigger gun wins, went, I mean, he went all out on that and decided we should have open carry of rifles. Okay, that was like, it wasn't even a concealed carry issue anymore. It was open carry on rifles, concealed carry on handguns. That's where W went with that, right? Because it would be really hard to conceal a
A
shotgun,
rifle, right?
right, or a rifle. I have one. I can't put it in my pocket. You know, my pockets are big enough, and women never have pockets. So, um, so the thing with W is then when he gets elected as president, the NRA went all in on him. And you have to understand that the NRA was in existence before George W. Bush, but with him at the helm of the presidency, at the helm of the country, the NRA grew exponentially.
They
And
certainly did.
they
And
learned
their
to
power
steer up.
grew, and their influence over politicians due to their
Right.
lobbying
So
changed the gun
W,
discussion in the country.
right. And so part of that, to earn the love, undying love from the NRA, or dying love, W did away with the Brady Bill. He let it expire. So that's how we got here, ladies and gentlemen, with, as of this morning, 233 mass shootings in the United States since January 1st. Mass shootings are when 4 or more people are shot or killed, excluding the gunman. 233. And we've had some very stellar examples of this in the United States just in the last 24 hours.
Now,
Now,
Heidi, I gotta play devil's advocate here with you, right?
yeah.
You mentioned Ronald Reagan, or you mentioned George Bush, and you mentioned this myth of Wild Wild West. But
Yeah.
I gotta ask you, where does this all come into play with the good guy with a gun, bad guy with a gun? Because that's a part of the myth, right? It's everybody's right to carry a rifle. It's everybody's right to openly carry a rifle. It's everybody's right to carry a concealed handgun. It's everybody's right to carry an open handgun. And a part of that, in one of the bills, HB 1927, that
This
is
is in
waiting to
Texas.
be passed,
Yeah.
is that police officers are now no longer required to inquire when they see an open weapon. So it used to
Well,
be, if I see you carrying a piece openly,
yeah.
an officer
Want me to get
had
one?
to approach and ask for the permit, right? But
Yeah.
now they don't. So everyone is concerned that, like you said, there are far more guns, far more people carrying openly. How do you know in situations that we have
No.
seen in any? I mean, I think many of those 233 mass shootings you mentioned happened in Texas. So how can the law enforcement know? And that's a big concern. But guess what? They really don't care. Greg Abbott doesn't seem to care. And you know something? Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick doesn't care about law enforcement either. Here's a little trick. Okay, there is an agency in the state of Texas that regulates and oversees law enforcement. Now, that sounds like something that's a good idea, right? To make sure no abuses are happening and handle any questions or internal
Right.
arguments. Well, Lieutenant Dan Patrick has one day to allow that legislation, to allow funding for that whole department to go by the wayside. So
Right.
he is willing to sacrifice an agency that helps and protects and defends law enforcement to force their House and Senate to come back into session and vote on it. But that's not the real reason, this sneaky little turd. The real reason he's forcing another session is because there were 3 bills that did not pass because they were not on the House floor in time. They didn't meet the deadline. And those 3 bills are, like you said, Heidi, banning transgender students from playing in the sports they identify with. 2,
Right.
prohibiting local governments from using taxpayer funds to lobby. So if you think about that, that means that Austin can't use taxpayer funds to talk about renewable energy and infrastructure anymore, which benefits Austin because it is a tech hub and they're heavily dependent on it, which
Right.
means the Republican legislature gets to
Greg
go,
Abbott hates Austin.
huh?
Greg Abbott hates Austin.
He does. He also hates El Paso and most of Houston.
Yeah.
And we see that with his voting rights bills. But the final one, this one is just insanely bananas. So we're protecting the Second Amendment, right? Woohoo! But we're denying the First Amendment because one of the bills that didn't get a chance to have a vote is the social media bill. It's Senate Bill 12. And what it is will prohibit social media companies with 100 million monthly users from censoring any political views associated with Texas or from those within the state of Texas. Heidi.
So, well, Florida just passed a similar bill. And what this does is it prevents Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter from censoring content that is illegitimate content, that's false, that's prohibited content, because it's the right thing to do. And we've fought this battle, right, with these large companies because of the 2016 election, because of what's gone on, and they did better, but not great in the 2020 election. But we're trying to get them to clean up their act, and Texas is like, you don't have to clean up anything. This is Texas. We're going to pull out a gun.
Yeah. We want you to keep it as shady as possible.
We
and
want
it also doesn't affect those conservative outlets that have smaller, anything under 100 million. Yes, like Parler
and Liker.
Right. Yeah. And the best part about all of this legislation that is sitting on Greg Abbott's desk, or that is being called into, or maybe called in for a special session, every single piece of it overrides any federal legislation that may contradict it.
You know, that, I believe, is going to turn out to be unconstitutional. That piece of legislation is going to go into the Supreme Court. You know it, and I know it as well.
Okay. You're right, but all right, let's talk. So Mr. Greg Abbott is back in the blue. He's got all these bills out there, right? Bill that makes it a felony to use fireworks or lasers in toward any police officers. So, all of these great bills, right? He's so pro-law office. He's got to be good at what he does. If he is, then why did a man outside of See, my brain gets so excited some days. All right, it just goes nuts. All right, so an armed man inside of his home had someone call in on a well check, and this occurred in Flower Mound, Texas, a suburb.
That's where my sister lives.
Really? No way.
Yeah, my sister lives in Flower Mound. Yeah.
Okay. So yesterday, this man was called for a check-in. Now, we don't have much more details on who he is, but apparently, according to police reports, he had had his guns removed for probable cause prior and had been given his guns back. Someone in his family or a neighbor called in to say, we'd like a welfare check on him, and multiple police officers responded to the scene. Upon engaging him through knocking, shooting began. Now, just take a second for this, okay? We know this gentleman has had issues before. We know he has firearms. So why would you send in 3 teams of officers heightening the situation instead of sending someone in who could perhaps de-escalate the situation?
So what happened when he did what did he break, Murray, when he shot one of his guns? What did he blow apart?
The face shield, the bulletproof shield, the ballistic shield protecting law enforcement.
Super high caliber weapons in there, which is probably why.
Or could it be that Greg Abbott, that's why Greg Abbott needs all the extra funding to get better shields for the countless police forces he wants to create to patrol the cities in Texas?
You can, here's the thing. Wait. Follow me on this. This is the devil you know. You know that this guy has got these guns that have been removed from him once because he's mentally unstable. Poor man. God knows what demons he's battling. But they gave him back his guns. He has another psychotic breakdown. Instead of calling a counselor to do a wellness check, they call the police. And the police are like,
multiple police show up. So the guy's already paranoid. He's already mad you took his guns once. And you're going to send 6 police officers to knock on his door? Right. He's instantly going to be pissed off. Just like you were saying, Heidi, he's going to be in an attack position. And those officers, we talk about this all the time, are going to be in a something bad's going to happen mentality, right?
Right.
So
Something bad's going
it's
to
a
happen.
lose-lose situation from the very
You got to
beginning.
pull out a bigger gun because that's what it is in Texas. The biggest gun wins, right? Bam, bam.
So
And
no. It's not just that you
nobody
have to
won
pull
in
out a
this.
bigger gun. Wait. So
Yeah.
after he started shooting, the three teams of officers called in the crisis intervention as well as the
After.
SWAT team. Because
After.
adding a SWAT team to an
Always
already
help.
tense situation makes it that
Always
much
help.
better,
Yeah.
right? So now you're in this hostage or this standoff for 4 hours. You have countless officers there, and then they bring in the U.S. Marshals. They bring in the Texas Rangers.
Yep.
I mean, you're bringing in agencies from the FBI from all across for one man
Yeah.
who has an unstable moment and he has guns. He's not holding a mall hostage. He's the only one in the house. And all of this has escalated into how many millions of dollars did it cost to call all those agencies out, right, Heidi? For
I know.
one man.
For
Then they
one
decided
guy.
to tear gas him at about
Mhm.
2:30 this morning, and they finally got him out of the room, out of his home at 5 a.m. So it was a 12-hour endeavor, and it involved four agencies, federal agencies. It involved state agencies, countless man hours for what? To approach a guy who's going to be suspect of you coming to approach him because you took his shit before. Like,
Right.
people, this doesn't make sense. But the governor, Greg Abbott, of course, he's such a great guy, and he loves law enforcement so much that he wants to spend more money policing communities that defund
Yeah.
or that reorganize the police. That's one of the bills he wants to see go through. And it's a delightful little number that says if a city in Texas or a municipality has a certain set of response time that is not deemed acceptable by the governor and the state legislature, that he will deploy forces, special, better equipped forces into those municipalities to maintain control. And
Okay, Marie. Yeah. So here's the thing. Greg Abbott is so worried about police response time that it was 16 minutes in Austin, right? You have places in Texas where if you need an ambulance, it can take hours. So why isn't he using resources there? If you are in a car accident on a rural interstate, it can take hours for the sheriff to arrive because it's such a vast area. And because they did not take Medicaid expansion under the ACA and are refusing to do it again, they've shut rural hospital systems all over and EMS all over the state of Texas. Since ACA Obamacare went in place, Texas has refused to take Medicaid expansion. It's closed down rural health initiatives. And in some cases, there's one case in Texas where the actual doctor drives the ambulance out to pick you up. And it could be 4 hours from the time you're in that accident till you get to a hospital. And Greg Abbott isn't upset about that. Yet he's upset about 16
but
minutes
he's
for
so upset about police response time and our
Murray,
police officers
outrageous.
not having what they need, including higher weapons, more expensive guns, bigger. Now, think about
if everybody's
this.
armed,
What
you
would
gotta
he
have a
have
bigger
done?
gun.
Would they have added 6 more units to the guy who had a gun and wanted to kill himself? I mean, really, if he just wanted to kill himself, why should we stop him? Why should it cost us millions of dollars? And why should we have militarized federal state responses swarming one dude who's miserable with his life? Okay, everything is wrong. And now they're going to cut funding. They're not just going to cut funding, they're going to send in those police troops that he wants to have, those special forces, and they're going to go ahead and say, if you do this, you have to have an election within 30 days. And then anybody that you've annexed can leave you and come under our protection. And we're going to take away state funding from you. And all of this is to support our law enforcement. Then why are they letting the Law Enforcement Regulation Agency? Remember this, Lieutenant Dan Patrick from about 10 minutes ago. is allowing the agency that protects and regulates law enforcement to disappear. But yet they care about police. They don't. This is not
You
about
don't worry
policing.
because the amount of high caliber weapons that people are allowed to own and keep in Texas is ridiculous and dangerous because you don't need those high caliber weapons at all for break in. If you're a good shot, you need one shot. Ask my pops, even though he's passed away, he'd tell you if you're a good shot, you need one shot. That's all you need. So,
And the laws are
you know,
making it harder for the police to do their jobs, like
well,
not being
the
able
law
to
enforcement
approach.
agencies came out against those bills. They
They
came out
did.
against it.
They
They're
did
like,
not
"What
want.
are you trying to kill us? This is why we need more money for law enforcement. We need bigger guns, better shields, more guns. We need more people because they're going to keep taking us out. Nobody's going to want to serve in law enforcement in Texas because it's too damn dangerous."
Well, you don't need
So,
law enforcement in Texas, which again is why I'm
oh,
wondering
good guy with a
why
gun,
he's
bad guy with a gun.
spending.
How do you know the difference, Murray? How do we
Well,
know
no,
the difference?
Heidi. If a
Sorry.
bad guy with if everybody's carrying a gun and a
Yeah.
bad guy with a gun goes to do something, well then there'll be 700 good guys with guns, right? So we don't
Sure.
even
How do you know
need
which one is good and which
police
one's bad?
anymore because we can police each other.
So, do the good guys wear white hats and the bad guys wear black hats? Isn't how they did that in the Western so you could tell them apart?
Yeah, the
I'm
good
just
guy
trying to
wears the
figure
bad
it
guy
out
wears.
because, I could pull out my cream colored Western hat and my black Western hat, and you couldn't tell the difference. What if I decided to wear the black one on a day that I'm feeling
And
really,
then
really
let's
good?
just go down a real quick horrible hypothetical. If Texas wants to continue allowing racist and blatant lies with their social media bill being spread, fostering division and hatred and this big gun ideology, and everyone is carrying a gun
Yeah.
openly. If I happen to be a paranoid Christian right wing white person and I see a black woman
Yeah.
getting into her purse, but she looks shifty. Does the Florida Stand My Ground law come into place? Do they have anything like that? We need to check it out. This is going to be a in real life, mega elimination
Alamo?
fest. It's a nightmare.
I, and here's the thing. As Texas tries to continue to distance itself from our federal government, when their electrical grid goes down again because they've made no changes and no improvements since it failed in the polar vortex that they had, are they going to refuse help from the federal government for them? Because what are we only good for? Our money's only good and our help is only good and our laws are only good when they have a disaster of their own making? Or is it we're only good for help and assistance and advice when they have a major hurricane and they don't have the resources? It's just like the Mexican government sends them water ships in almost right away after the Texas has had a terrible hurricane, and they rarely return the favor.
Right. And yet Puerto Rico gets
So,
paper towels
yeah.
and things that don't show up. So I don't know why Texas is so anti-federal government because they
Well,
get a ton from the federal government. They're not. They're
yeah.
anti-democratic. They want to make
Well,
sure that their Republican buddies are in, which is why they're manipulating the state, changing the voting laws, and hoping that all of their paranoid white rednecks who get to stay on social media filled with lots of lies
yeah.
shoot all the people of color in the state of Texas and make it white. I don't know. I'm
No, no,
thinking
no,
that's his
no. They need
objective.
the Mexican people that come into work to do the jobs that they don't want to do.
Oh, to harvest the crops. You're right.
And work in refineries where they don't want to work, or in the meat packing plants. So they won't shoot them, but they'll shoot all the black people because they can. But Murray, Texas has had so much stupid since 1995. The stupid is unbelievable. Rick Perry, and now Greg Abbott. I mean, you
Girl,
can't
Texas has
get
always
any
been a problem
stupider
child,
than that.
but Texas is getting very afraid that Democrats are going to be turning it blue. That's why you're seeing this.
And
Florida, and here's the difference, okay? We talked a little bit about Greg Abbott's hairless cat. Ron
yeah,
DeSantis in Florida is an idiot. He doesn't have a master plan. He might be following Greg's lead. Maybe they text each other. What are you going to do to destroy your state today? You think they have a chain?
It's not only that, Marie, it's the fact that Texas continues to do these things and take the advice of the Federalist Society because they can only do things as negatively and as horribly as they possibly can. I watch what happens in Florida and in Texas and in Oklahoma, in a lot of cases Oklahoma, Kansas. You know, these red states that are super Trumpy, all they're doing is hurting their own people. Here you have Texas that's basically saying that there is no possible reason for law enforcement to be protected. They've given up
But
all.
yet they're going to spend more money and send in militarized troops,
They're going to
force.
have to, Marie. With these laws, they're going to have
Yeah,
militarized.
you're probably right. You're
So
probably
you
right.
had come up in pre-show talking about, are they ready to secede from the Union because they're becoming a militarized state?
Sure.
Is that their end game? What is the end game? Because the end game is a puzzle. Because what they're doing does not serve their electorate. It doesn't serve them at all.
And their people, and then, like you pointed out in the beginning, polls show that most Texans are not in favor of this crazy
80%.
crap either. So why are they
Yeah.
doing it? You're right, Heidi. Maybe it is a secession plan.
You know, I can't imagine.
I hope it's
that
headed by
they're-
Marjorie Greene and Mike Liddell. I think that Marjorie Greene, Matt Gaetz, and Mike Liddell should tour all the red states, connecting them through their own new Q country. I don't know. I think it
But
would be
that's what they did
hilarious.
before January 6th, right? That's how we had the insurrection.
Oh,
we had those
crap.
people out
The America
cheering.
for. Okay, let's
Oh,
read.
yeah. So it already happened, Murray, and they caused an insurrection by doing that tour through the red states and dragging all their super Trumpy followers, QAnon followers, clear to our U.S. Capitol. And they weren't tourists. I don't care what you've heard. They were not touring anything except to try to take over the federal government. And that's the bottom line here.
I agree. So, folks, you have heard the download on Tex-assier because everything is bigger there, including their super evil villains living in the side of a mountain with, like, Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Dan Patrick. But you guys have got to check out our unrolls. Our unrolls are deep dives that we do on topics we cover on our weekly shows here on Facebook. It is Heartland Mamas Unrolled. It's an independent radio show. Look for it any place you find your independent radio or you have it downloaded. And guys, be sure to join us on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. live when we talk about the things that you think it's safe to go back into the politics and it's not. So join us to be terrified, thrilled, and excited. Get us everywhere you get your favorite
outraged.
podcasts.
I'm outraged. I'm outraged.
I'm numb. I don't know. I think numb is my word for today. I'm pretty much just like I would say the word, but we'd probably get censored. So, Heartland Mamas, YouTube, Spotify, every place you get your favorite podcasts, and at Heartland Mamas.
MAMAS.com. And we are releasing our Unrolled with Dr. DeVay, Ottawa legendary doctor, on a special Memorial Day weekend cast, so you can hear what Unrolled sounds like and see how we
dive
do that.
Deeper.
We dive really deep in that, and it'll be an hour-long episode, so be prepared.
So get it, subscribe, like, share. If you don't, our voices get stuck with like the thousands that we have. We need lots more thousands to understand what's really going on in the skinny. But be sure to do that. Heartland Mamas.
MAMAS.com. We'll see ya next week. Take care now, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.